Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining the Architect session. Steve will be on with us here shortly. I just want you to know two things about today's session. If you click on your video screen twice, it will expand your screen so you can see his PowerPoint easier. If you want to chat in this session, you'll see on the right-hand side the session button. Make sure that that session button is clicked and you will chat within this session. If you want to speak with to the whole group in the event, you'll just need to make sure that you have the event button clicked. So thanks again for joining us, and I'm sure Steve will be here in just a moment.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thanks, Steve.
No problem.
I'm going to turn it on over to you. And like I said to the group while we were waiting, I will be watching the chat for you and let you know if there's any questions and if any people pop up in the moderation panel who would like to ask a question live. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and thanks so much.
Fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone to my session, Becoming a Salesforce Black Belt, training for the Salesforce Certified Technical Architect CTA. And to give you all background, so I am the Phoenix co-group leader with Marisa and the co-founder of Cactus Force. I've spoken, I think had there been a Dreamforce, it would have been my 14th or 15th. I'm a Salesforce Certified Technical Architect. I'm actually number 231, and there's about 320 of us in the world. I have 21 Salesforce certs, and I'm actually an instructor for the Trailhead program, teaching the CTA prep class, and also an examiner for the CTA exam. And I have over 15 years of Salesforce and Heroku. And by the way, I happen to be a 5th degree master instructor and scuba diving instructor. So I'm going to shift in and talk about the journey to architect, the breadth of the Salesforce platform. You got to know your tools, the different steps you need to gain of experience and expertise. And then I'm also going to talk about the exam, what it takes to go for that, the final exam for the CTA program, and then how to apply your knowledge. But to me, it's not always about just getting the certification just for the sake of the certification. I started on this journey many years ago in Salesforce, and I remember being in a Dreamforce and looking up, and the head of the program was talking about the pyramid. They had just invented the pyramid, and I had my 401 and my 501 certs, and I said to myself, I want to start on the pyramid. So on a January, I started taking the domain certs. So I had 401, 501 in the Dreamforce. And on January, I think 15th, I passed my first domain. And then I started doing domains. I think I was domain crazy, taking exam. And within 6 months, I went from 2 certs to 20 certs. And then I sat for the exam. And so I was a little crazy in the program. That was a few years ago. And I have found that it has changed who I am, both in what I do, approaching the work, and all the whole Salesforce platform. So here's the pyramid. And many of you who are on this journey know this pyramid really well. You strive for the technical architect at the top. You can first obtain one side of the pyramid through platform developer, sharing visibility, or you can sort of get the other side of the platform. And this might be an old slide. Some of the things have changed. So go ahead and go to the website for the latest slide. But there's the development lifecycle, identity and access, platform developer, and then you work your way up for the technical architect. So the journey changes the way you think and act. Instead of learning just what you know. It forces you to learn things that you hadn't any need for. Identity, learning all about single sign-on. Those were things that most people don't need, but they're one of the key tenets of the exam. And you learn to learn these things, and then you can apply them, if not immediately, at some point later in your career. You learn how to collaborate across the enterprise, being able to talk to people of different domains, security, business, all forms of, because of the breadth of knowledge you've gained, you can talk about Salesforce from a wider perspective. You create a balanced solution. You look at the different elements of Salesforce and choose between them. There are now over 17 rules of sharing, and you want to know when to use each of those sharing rules. And so you look at when a sharing rule will hit a problem, and you might need to use a different topology to solve it. You need to present your solutions up to executive teams, act as a broker and decision maker, prepare for issues before they happen. And the motto in the CTA groups is think correct, think fast. So you want to come up with the correct answer, but you don't need hours or days or weeks or months to do it. Typically, you can process the information you have, know the capabilities of the platform, and then adjust for the situations on the fly. And it's about becoming a better architect. It's not about the certs. They were a way to measure climbing the mountain and gaining the knowledge and becoming a better architect. And so you got to know the platform components. I like to say that again, as a master instructor in the martial arts, I look about knowing your weapons, knowing your tools. What is it? Where is it used? How do I use it? What are my alternatives? And what are its strengths and weaknesses? And then how do I explain it to the developers who are going to build the business when they say they want something visibility to this person, but not this person, and in this circumstance, but not this circumstance, and there's no standard criteria-based sharing rule, business sharing rule, and we've got to write code. You need to be able to explain to them why you now have to go to code. And you need to explain to the executives. And then how is it maintained? Maybe if you do go to code, then you're going to have to maintain the code, versus had you maybe backtracked a little bit on the requirements, been able to go use a more standard capability, then it can have better maintainability in the long term. And so each thing you touch and feel and choose between Salesforce, I like to think of it as knowing your tools. Examples, you're going to have communities which have license types. License-enabled applications, Leia, customer community plus, partner community, employee community. Each has strengths and weaknesses. One, they cost different amount, but beyond that, if you have 500,000 users, you can choose across the spectrum. But if you've got 2 million users, then you're really limited to customer community and Leia. Now, if you get to 100 million users, then none of these might be able to apply because of limits. So you need to know your limits. And as you go up from CC plus to CC, you get more capabilities in users, but you actually get narrowed capabilities on sharing and role security. And that goes into building a balanced solution. You need to look at outbounds from the client. You're trying to be at the client level. Are you going to do a mashup? Are you going to do Canvas? How are you going to have outbound transactions at the client? At the server, you're going to do SOAP, REST, outbound messaging. Are you going to do platform events? How do you trace error and log errors on all of these different elements? So this is what I mean by knowing your tools of what you're choosing. Don't just choose it because it's the shiny bubble syndrome. You think it's going to solve the problem. You need to be able to see it, its strengths and weaknesses together. This is a fun diagram that I put together, which is, I like to say that Salesforce platform is like an elephant, and it's hard to see the whole platform. I put Salesforce in the middle. We put the core platforms to the left, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Community Cloud, CPQ. These actually live within what we call Salesforce Core. If we go to the top, middle, we've got MuleSoft interfacing with integrations. You could swap that out with Informatica, Jitterbit, Dell Boomi. There's a whole number of tools, but that's your integration options. To the right, you've got your Heroku, you got your App Cloud. You can have in extra elements, which have their own idiosyncrasies. external identity. Salesforce Connect, Heroku Connect, big objects. People hear Salesforce Connect and Heroku Connect and think they're the same thing, but they're not. Heroku Connect mirrors data between Salesforce and Heroku Postgres, so the data is in both places. When you go to Salesforce Connect, that you are inside Salesforce accessing external data, potentially very large, on an external platform and only bringing it in for transient, just for viewing, reporting, some limited updates, but the data is not residing in Salesforce. So being able to talk to that and know the strengths and weaknesses. You have AI and analytics, Einstein. I think I've counted at one point over 7 products that have the word Einstein. Einstein Analytics, Einstein Discovery, Einstein Intent, Einstein Vision, Einstein Inbox. There are so many products that are different, but are being used for the Einstein capabilities. You have your commerce, B2B, which would be your cloud craze, which runs inside of Salesforce Core, or you have B2C, which is your commerce cloud, which runs outside of Core. And then you have your Pardot and your marketing cloud, each marketing with different purposes. So a key element is knowing these different components of the platform and knowing when to use them and their strengths and weaknesses. And a CTA has to kind of learn the full spectrum in order to be able to solution properly. Let's go to the next slide. So how do you get there? You look at some quick wins. You focus in on the side you can tackle first. This is me going a couple years ago. It's a big daunting list. How do I start this journey? I've got 2 years of Salesforce. I've got 10 years of Salesforce. How do I go from what I've been doing and how do I go and apply it to getting this certification? So you pick a side and you climb it. If you are very much a configurator, you might choose to go platform app builder. Then you say, I can go to platform developer 1 and I'm only 2 domains away, sharing and data management, and then I can be an app architect. You may be more of a coder. You love integrations. You love dev lifecycle. So then you would go to the right side, platform dev, integration, identity, and work your way up. So I'm going to talk about some of the pieces and parts and how they are relevant. So app architect, deep understanding of config and can see how to use the role hierarchy, data models, and how to configure everything properly. This is a lot of your configurators and people who have really used the out-of-the-box capabilities. You want, for data architecture, you want to know about your platform, your licenses. This goes into knowing what Sales Cloud versus Service Cloud. You're going to get into large data volumes. When does a smoke start coming out of Salesforce? Which it does. It doesn't come with load, it comes with volume. With Salesforce, if you've got 2 million records, you're going to have decent performance. You're not going to have performance issues. If you have 200 million records in an S object, then you're going to have issues. Things aren't going to be running. Somewhere between about 50 million records, performance starts to degrade. You got to watch about your optimized indexes. You got to see how you can even order what's called skinny tables and have them created. There's a lot of things you can do. You learn about the bones of an application, data model, on platform, off platform. I talked about Heroku Connect versus Salesforce Connect. So this facet of the program makes you look at the bones, the volume, the licensing, and learn about. And this is a very important one that you definitely need to take into account in your architecture designs. Sharing and visibility. You don't want everyone to see everything. So you need to be able to lock it down. You need to be able to lock down object access, field level access. You need to be able to create the sharing of records, org-wide defaults, role hierarchy, sharing rules. You want to use the native Salesforce wherever you can and only go to Apex sharing when there's no other alternatives. And you need to know the implicit sharing. Now, here's an interesting one. People think, oh, when in doubt, I'll just write Apex sharing. But guess what? Apex sharing rules don't work. When I say Apex sharing, I mean Apex inserted sharing records. Those don't work on customer community because they don't support that. And you got to know the implicit sharing. Here's a little thing I created, Steve, 17 ways of sharing. You've got org-wide defaults and ownership and the role hierarchy and the criteria-based sharing rules and owner-based sharing rules, manual sharing, apex sharing sets and sharing groups used in communities, one to share records to the community and one to share records back to the community users. Territory. Then you have your 11A, B, C, your case team, your account team, your opportunity team. You've got your implicits, parent to child, child to parent, all with the account level hierarchy. You've got your implicit ones, case contact on a community, on a case. If you have a contact and that contact is the community user, then the community user gets read-only visibility to the case. You have view all, modify all on the profile, which will actually alter your sharing. And then you have the data sharing rule, a new element that came in about 2 years ago, where you can create more conditional based sharing. And then what do you do if none of these work? Talked about Community Cloud, which is opening up Salesforce to external groups of people. I think half or more of all my clients now end up with some form of a community where they want to open it up and expose it. Setting up you got to know the templates and the sharing models, customization options. You got to know the authentication, even social sign-on, how to do profiles and security, knowledge, cases, and know the different license types and the limits and capabilities. And in fact, this is a grid I keep around of license types. You can see licensing Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, CRM, EE versus UE, and whether you get read-only or read-write. So this is a whole license that I kind of use to help guide me. So that was the left side of the pyramid, and that journey, as you collect domain after domain, will make you learn more and more, and you turn and apply it in your job. Now we're going to shift to the other side of the domain. We're going to shift over to the system architect. This is going to really hit those highly detailed side. You're going to focus on integrations, off-platform, securing the access, governance, testing. So the integration is one of the domains with the deepest amount of knowledge that you need to have. So this is one where you're going to need to know all the integrations. You need to know all the call-ins, meaning SOAP, and REST, streaming API, and platform events, and Canvas. You're going to need to know all of your outbound, SOAP and REST, outbound messages. You're going to need to know about the other APIs, the tooling API, all the different APIs that are available in the Salesforce platform, when to use them and how to use them. You're going to have to know the types of integrations, the integration requirements, platform and the integration, authentication and data security. You're going to get to know really well OAuth and know the intricacies of the OAuth platform. So this is the one that has the most number of ninja tools, the most number of elements. And so this is the one where you're going to want to really, if you're not highly technical, haven't done integrations, I would not be tackling this one first. If you are, then jump into it and jump into this one. Identity. This is a whole domain regarding about authentication. And it's interesting, the reason why this is a very keystone for the CTA program is so few people know this well. It's typically set up once at a client, set up SSO, set up your OAuth flows, and then it stays stable. And so if you had a big dev team, one or two would do the configuration, the rest don't. And then once you set it up, it kind of leaves people's brains and it just runs on autopilot until it breaks. So this is one where you want to really learn this as a CTA, and it's kind of a cornerstone. You're going to learn about the My Domain, the OAuth flows. We actually have to draw detailed swim lane diagrams, like I'm showing you, of any of the detailed OAuth flows, SSO flows, SAML flows, social sign-on, and even Canvas authentication. You need to know about key features. You need to know about the OAuth scopes, different kinds of considerations. And so this is a very important one because it's one of the ones that most people don't have experience with. The irony is it's very easy to set this up. You can actually take Salesforce Sandbox, One can be the IDP, one can be the service provider, and you can actually set up a hub and spoke model. There's Heroku components you can stand up. You can really do the SAML inspectors. You can really set this up and understand it. You don't have to buy anything. With a handful of dev sandboxes, you can set up a full complex flow. So this is one that you really want to have, kind of do the Etch-a-Sketch, get your mind clear and say, all right, I'm ready. All right, dev lifecycle. If you work at a shop where there's a lot of developers and there's a migration through the environments, this one's going to be very straightforward for you. It's knowing the dev tools, source code control, knowing environment management, testing approach and tools. You're going to be able to need to talk to Agile versus Waterfall, or some people even have your hybrid of Wagile, Waterfall and Agile. You need to talk about compliance. How do you meet compliance? Maintenance strategies, governance, change control. And you need to know how to take something into production. Some people, you need to go beyond just change sets. You need to know about, when to use, the DX tools, when to have scratch orgs, how to migrate things upward through QA, UAT. You need to be able to talk on how to backflow things. You're in prod and you need to make a prod change. How do you backflow it to your developers so that they can adjust for those changes? Now you've gone through and you've climbed both sides of the pyramid, and you become an app architect, you become a sys architect, or you become a sys and then you become an app, and you say to yourself, I'm ready. I'm ready to go for the CTA program. Let me into the exam. Well, the interesting part is that's actually where your studying begins, because all of that just allows you to start preparing for the exam. So this next few minutes, I'm going to talk about the exam just from a very high level. And I actually teach the 601 class on the exam prep. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm actually a judge in the program. So the Salesforce has to have broad knowledge, draw on multi-development approaches, and you need to be able to take all that you've learned and solve it, and you need to solve it within a narrow time frame. This isn't an open book test where you can take 3 weeks to solve a problem. This is where you have to go in with just your knowledge of the platform and architect it in a strict time format. So you need to be given a hypothetical scenario. You'll read solution, create artifacts and drawings, and you will solve it. I call it solving a really hard puzzle, like a Rubik's Cube. So you need to solve it. Then you go in front of a panel of judges and you present your solution. You talk about the facets, the object models, and you walk through the security and the flows and the deployment. So you give the whole presentation of your approach. And then you'll open it up for QA, where they ask from the panel and they quiz you on your approach and your solutions and those details. And this is a multi-hour endeavor. And then at the end is you find out. So these are just some of the things you have to know. This is the wheel. You have to know patterns and components and platform features and identity stores and declarative and programmatic and SAML, OAuth flows. And you need to take these into account when you're solving and presenting the solution. This is only just a sample. How do you know when you're ready? When you think you're ready for the exam, you need to know your domain materials inside and out. You need to be able to recite the 17 sharing rules, and know the strength, and know that, guess what? I'm going to use a criteria-based sharing rule, but I'm limited to 50. Or I'm going to have an owner-based sharing rule, and I can go up to 300 per object. But wait, those don't work when I go to a customer community license. I'm going to choose Apex sharing, but the Apex sharing doesn't work with a customer community license. What do I do? And so being able to have these things at the tip of your tongue and being able to wield them to solve a problem, that is a key element. You need to solve the problem with a cohesive solution. So if you say, I'm going to have 100 million cases and I'm going to off-platform them because of large data volumes, but then I won't be able to run standard Salesforce reports and dashboards on my historical archive. So you need to say to yourself, what are my reporting requirements? And what are my data storage requirements? And find a way to build a balanced solution across all of that. You might be asked, what do you do with dealing with North America and Europe with other different regulatory requirements? Do I have one org and can I meet the security requirements of the GDPR? Or do I split the org, but then now I have cross-org reporting issues? And what happens when I have an account in one org and the account is international doing business in the other org? So you need to be able to draw artifacts that convey the complex information. You do need to get in front of a group and present. And you need to be able to handle questions and changes to requirements. Well, what if instead of 10 million, you got a 50 million? What if instead of this, that? And so, and you need to be able to work quickly under time constraints. And so these are definite things that you need to know when you're ready to wield all the materials of the platform and meet these criteria. Then you can consider yourself ready. How do you prepare? You need to get all the certifications, get some extra ones. Doesn't hurt to get Sales Cloud, Service Cloud. They're not core to the pyramid, but I remember grabbing Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Community Cloud, optional, but I've got it. Just get all the certifications you can, not because they're important and not because you need all these badges on your shoulder, but because they're going to teach you something about the platform that you may not know. And you never know when that's going to be something you need in your job. You want to get hands-on. If you don't know something like identity, go spin up some orgs and start using them. Get on the communities, get a mentor. Join the study groups. When I was studying, we had sessions where we would meet every week, and a few of us would get together and share and bring solutions. There's the 601 course, which I'm one of the instructors for, and you can learn to prep for the exam. Typically, you should have we'll check with Trailhead, but you should have the system architect and the app architect before you go for the 601. And you want to practice. You want to pretend it's the exam, set a timer, feel the pressure, and present to somebody. So if you've come a long way, what's really helpful is know the format, get yourself in all the different areas from solving, presenting. You need to be able to apply the domain knowledge, implement your strategies, and practice, practice, practice. And it is amazing that the test is almost like real life. I remember I would go in front of a CIO and I would present a possible solution, and they started asking me what if questions, and my CTA experience kicked right in. Somebody handed me a 20-page RFP, and I grab it and I'm like, oh, this feels like an exam on the CTA, and I could sit down and solve it in a matter of an hour or two. Break down all the users and the objects and the flows and the system landscape. I knock out system landscapes and object models in my sleep, just solutioning. So the point is, it's not always about getting the exam, but it does change you. And then where do you go to practice? Trailheads, become triple ranger, quadruple ranger, grab the sample code and figure out how it works. Get on the community and then find ways to get into it. And if you can't do something, just Google it, find ideas, upvote them, look for workarounds. CTAs just adapt. They find the limitations of the platform, which there will be. The platform's always evolving. You got to be ready for it to evolve, and it'll change its limitations over time. And then you need to learn about it and grow. What do you do once you have it? Go back, find out new strengths. It's funny, with 21 certs, I get a lot of recert exams. This is before when COVID there. I would have to take 10 plus 15 exams every quarter, and it forced me to learn about the platform, identify the weaknesses. Are there any new uses? What's available? So these are all very, very important things going on that I helped learn. Going to the top of the pyramid's not for everyone. Just even catching one side of it, or even a few of the domains. So you don't have to always be running to the top, but if you are, hopefully this will give you a guide. celebrate your successes. Put it on your LinkedIn. Learn from your failures. Don't give up. I haven't passed every exam. And I don't, when I don't pass, I learn, I study, and then I get back on it and tackle it. So go back for the refresher. So just learn. And again, the recertification exams are your friends to constantly be feeding you new knowledge and new capabilities. So it's been an amazing journey becoming a CTA. I've learned so much about the capabilities of the platform, and I constantly grow with the platform. So I look forward to seeing many of you, all of you growing in the platform, and seeing some of you climb upward towards the pyramid. So, and a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So for me, I kept seeing, I want to be a CTA, I want to be a CTA. And it wasn't until that January that I just said, I'm going to go for that one domain. And then I passed it. And I said, let me go for the next domain. And then I passed it. And so you just need to just start the journey. Sometimes life will get in the way, and then you find your way at some point in your life to get back on that journey. So I really enjoy it. So we're getting ready for this. This is just a sampler plate. When we get to the actual Cactus Force, we're going to have other architects. We're going to have other sessions. We're going to talk about the different phases of the journey. We're going to talk about really hard technical problems. So welcome you here. Give us feedback on the platform, and I'll switch over to questions.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. It was awesome. We have a question. When you were preparing for the CTA board, what gave you the indication that you were ready to do it?
So it is, you're going to have your app architect, your system architect, you're going to be on and have taken the practice exams. And I would really say, if you haven't gone through the 601 course, I am an instructor of it, but it really helps zero you in on the format of the test. The format of the test is very unique. So you need to be talking to people who are CTAs that can walk you through the format, and then you need to be working through the practice exam. So I would say, when you can get one of the practice exams, which they are available on the communities, and you can solve that practice exam within the time format and have somebody review it, then you'll know you're ready to go. So I would say you need to be doing the practice exams. You need to be really digging deep. But generally, we say once you get Plat app and SIS, probably at least sometimes 3 to 6 months of studying. I hope that's helpful. Okay.
Okay, I think that Daniel Gonzalez might have a question. Daniel, do you have a question?
That's okay.
Okay, maybe he does not.
Okay. Well,
hold on, I have Jason Miller. Jason Miller, do you have a question? There's Jason. Jason, do you have a question for Steve? If not, you're live. Just make one up.
Oh, wow, you guys can see me. I was just thinking, hey, so we're planning on Cactus Force being live and in person then, it sounds like.
no,
Cactus Force in January, hopefully?
we're going to be virtual.
Oh, we are? Okay.
So this is the practice run for Cactus Force, virtual.
I got it. It took me a little bit to get used to it too, but I'm used to it. All right, thanks. That's all I had.
Okay, thank you for that question. And Daniel, apparently, Steve, you answered Daniel's question in your presentation, so he doesn't have a question any longer. Thank you for that, Daniel. Marissa, do you have a question?
Yes. I thought I'd pop in here. And,
yeah. Yay.
Yay. Hey.
Hello.
Do you have a question or a comment?
I do. Well, actually, thanks, Steve. Like I'm just I'm perusing through the platform and seeing how things are going. And so I think this is a good time to just maybe talk about some, maybe some obscure details that you've learned CTA that, again, things that you wouldn't know if you weren't a CTA, right? You've been working in and around the platform for many, many years, but through your journey, your CTA journey, you've learned a lot of different little details and things that maybe most people wouldn't know. But it's something that, again, just becomes a unique knowledge, a unique CTA knowledge, and that has helped you in your work and your how you help your clients.
It's interesting. Some of the things that really can trip up large Salesforce implementations are large data volumes, LDV. And that means when any single object gets it beyond a certain limit, performance goes really bad. And so the first thing I do when I get a new client is I go to set up storage usage, and I immediately see how big their data is. And I've gone to one client where they're like, oh, we're working on a financial force implementation. We're 3 months into it. We're just getting started. And I go to set up storage uses, and they had 10 million records. And I'm like, you're at 10 million and you're only 3 months in and you haven't onboarded all your data. And I'm just like, so how much more data do you have to onboard? So they were, 10 million, things are fine. 50 million, the smoke starts to come out. And so I was like, you're like on the beginning of LDV and you haven't even onboarded all your work. And so the point I would say is watch your records, do your math. We were doing a client that was a retail chain, loyalty, and people would visit the store 4 times a year. They would buy 2 cash register receipts, and they would have 5 items on there. And then they said they want a loyalty program to go to 1 million users. And I'm like, 1 million? We tracked children, because it was a fun. So you had 2 kids. There's 1 million users, 2 million kids, average of 2.1 kids per person. They visited the store 4 times a year. So now we're at 4 million visits a year. But wait, they had 10 cash register receipts each visit. So the 10 times the 40, we suddenly were hitting 40 to 50 million records in the first 1 year. And then you add like a 3-year retention, and we're at 100 million. So one thing I do with my clients is we talk about an object and I say, how many records will they be? And they can't answer. So I go, how many zeros? 10, 100, 1,000, 1 billion? And they go, no, not 1 billion. So I actually get them to tell me counts, and just with the number of zeros. And that alone has really been a useful thing, is saying how many accounts will there be? How many contacts? How many of this? How many of that? And not even exact, just tell me how many zeros. So I would say that would be a key thing, is asking your clients how big something will be. Salesforce slows down at volume and not at number of users. They say I've got 10,000 users, but if they say they got 10, 20 million, 50 million records, let's look a little carefully. So that would be one of my key tips.
Awesome.
I'll go ahead and sign off. It looks like you have another question.
I do have another question. Thanks for joining us, Marissa.
Yes, I'm going to go pop back over.
Okay. So, Steve, the question is, have you worked with any CTAs that have taken the review board remotely? And what new challenges are there, if any, now that you are completely remote?
It is a different challenge. I was actually part of a process up in the real life, in person up until February, right as the things were coming down. And then I've been part of, being seen and being a part of the program of going virtual. It is going to be unique challenges for people, both for the people taking the exam and those judging. But we're working through that. And, the Trailhead is doing a wonderful job of maintaining the integrity of the test while at the same time adapting to the circumstance. And I don't want to, since I am part of the program, I don't want to, reveal anything, but the point is it will find that 2-pronged approach of pushing you to your limits while at the same time working through the new world that we all live in now of the camera. So I'll say they've done an amazing job of finding a way to make it work. And so it's both. It doesn't make it, maybe for somebody that used to really enjoy the pen and paper, but I would say you can adapt to it and both meet the challenge and feel the toughness of the test. Okay.
Thank you for that. Let's see. I think that is all the questions that I have. Do you want to say anything to wrap up?
Yeah. So just thank you for coming to our virtual experience. And those of you that are our architects on your way, the one key element of being a CTA is we all share. So the key thing is it doesn't matter who you work for, whether you work for Salesforce, work for a consulting company, or work for a client. Just be there, help foster growth, help share with people, because that's what it's all about. And we can all grow on the platform. So thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, so the networking session is next if you want to join us over in networking. If you look on the left of your screen, it doesn't have the red now button yet, but it will shortly. I changed up the time, so it should start here shortly at 6 p.m. If you don't see it, you can always refresh your screen and it should be there. And again, visit the polls. Make sure you answer those poll questions. It really helps us with our next event in January. So thank you so much, Steve, for all your wisdom and for sharing with us. Oh, wait, hold on. Let's see. Chuck, do you have a question? Chuck Lydell just came in. Nope, I guess he does not have a question. So we'll see you all over in the networking thing. And just also to remind you, I know there's only 14 people left. You're jumping out already. You need to click when you're ready to network, and then you'll get automatically joined with another Cactus Force person here on this session. So we'll see you in a few minutes in networking.
Thank you.